All right. Hello and welcome. Brett here with clickmill.co. In this video, we're going to be looking at moving into a lot of marketing disciplines and ministry growth in general offline. So this can be um, how to know and track who's coming in, who's coming back for the first time or second time, or if they're engaging with, what do we say, backdoor ministries like personal invitations to men's group or women's group or getting people engaged in actual programs. And how do we make decisions based on who's doing what? And so that's what we're looking at. So this is broadly applicable when it comes to your analytic data. And so that's what we're going to look at. Last week, we looked at the marketing funnel. This week, we're going to shift over and we're going to look at understanding analytic data. So as I mentioned, Pastor Karen, this is basically just a marketing funnel. And it looks different, but it is the same thing. And when we talk about the goal here, with all of the things we discuss at ClickMill, the goal is to create fruit. You know, as believers, we're fruit inspectors. We're supposed to look at people's lives in the church and say, you've got good fruit here and not so good fruit here. And, we can kind of know a tree by its fruit. And we should work on this thing over here to improve the fruit in this area of our life or your life or whoever's life. And so out here, this is our result. We want water coming through the pipe. That's the fruit. And we're always optimizing for that. When we look at the marketing funnel, same thing, desired action at the bottom. The action, the movement is the fruit. And so that's what we want people to do. So as we look here, let me get rid of that. As we look, impressions, when you have a marketing funnel and you have impressions, an impression is people who see whatever it is, your blog, or how do I say this? They see an advertisement. Here, we'll go up here. I'll show you what an impression is in marketing. Contract. Let's just look up contractor near me. And that is spelled wrong, and it doesn't matter. I look up contractors because I know they advertise a lot. So here is an ad on Google, right here, very tippy top, sponsored. That's how I know it's an ad. And construction done right, over 100 happy clients. That seems underwhelming, but nonetheless, only 100. So we are being impressed, or in this case, not so impressed by this ad. And so this is an impression. I'm being impressed by the ad. It is making an impression on me, and this is it. Now, when I click on this ad, firstly, in advertising terms, they pay for that click. So that's why it's called cost per click advertising. Okay, so that's CPC advertising. Highly efficient because I don't have to pay a gajillion dollars to send a radio signal or put a billboard over the highway to people who have nothing to do with me and hope someone cares about it. I can target these ads at exactly the right audience. If you're wearing a blue shirt and you're eating a donut on a Tuesday morning, you're going to see my ad. Obviously not exactly like that, but more or less. And I only pay when that exact type of person clicks on it and says, oh, I am eating a blue donut. I'm eating whatever on a Tuesday morning, and I'm interested. Then you pay. That makes ads like this very, what do you want to say? A very good place to steward ministry resources if you're looking to grow, because you're not just paying for no result. You're paying for someone to identify themselves as someone who's interested in what you have. And the likelihood that you lose money on that is low. And we don't want to throw ministry financial resources out the window with a low chance of making it back. So that's number one. Either way, when we click on it, then the ministry pays, and they pay, say, $2 for the click. And that's how you do advertising. So we've got an impression, and when I click, we have a click. Coming over to our analytic data, you'll see we have right here, impressions, total clicks. So they click, and when we click, what happens on the marketing funnel? We connected with them out on Google off of our website, and we offered to meet a need. And we say, hey, if you want to meet a need, come on in here. And that's the connect. We move to convert. The convert, we click, and then we show up on the website. And then we try to follow through with meeting that need, which is, oh, if you love what you're seeing, sign up and get your free account. Sign up for your free brochure. Get your free 30-day prayer guide. And that's where you get the name and the email and the phone number. Now, for many churches, this is going to be something akin to save your seat, plan your visit, join this event, and you get the name, email, and phone number to get them to come in person. So that's the conversion process. So then what do we have? We have an impression out there. So this can be how many people you talked with on your homeless outreach. That's an impression because you went out there, you connected, and then the call to action at the end of that phase of the marketing funnel is, if you love this, come over here to our church and we've got something better for you. And that's why it's so important to only do outreaches that apply to that churchgoer journey. Because if you invite them into your church and you don't have homeless services in your church, well, what the heck are they doing there? That doesn't make any sense. I thought you said you were going to keep meeting my needs here. You got nothing. And that's what I explained to you a couple of weeks ago with that carnival. That ministry would spend tens of thousands of dollars on the carnival, and all these parents would show up the next week, and there's no family ministries. Well, what am I doing? Okay, so that's how we lose them. So we need to make sure we're only targeting those vision type outreaches, and then we call them to action. So we've got impressions. Then we've got the clicks, and that's just maybe we'll call it online. This is a website visitor, or this could be someone coming from the outreach ministry and actually visiting the church for the first time. So there you go. That's how we map that onto real life. It's the exact same process. And then once we do that, then we have conversions. So at the front door of your church, what do you have? You have the welcome booth. How many things do we ask for at the welcome booth? Well, as we discussed last week with the marketing funnel, not all the things, because that's weird and creepy, right? That's the very first time we're meeting. Well, what do we say? If they're at your welcome booth, they have come to your church. That's the first date. They're seeing if your church is weird. You know, if you're on a date, like if I'm on a date with my future wife for the first time, and I'm married, so this would be in the past, I should not show up in a panel van. I should probably do my hair and be able to have normal conversation. And that does not involve me asking for social security number and number of children and who their last church was. Oh, who's your last boyfriend? Maybe I knew him. What are you talking about? No. So how many things do we ask for at the front door? Minimum, the absolute max you need to get date number 2 and follow up with them and say, hey, I had a great time. I'd love to go to coffee again next week. How do you feel about that? That's normal and absolutely nothing else. Or you're just, we're just shooting ourselves right in our foot because now we're the weird church. So let's not do that. And so we get the conversion at the door online. That is, download your free brochure, get your 30-day prayer guide. Save my seat, something like that is an online conversion. And then what do? We follow up. So the conversion, this is obviously here, convert. And then we go into that lead nurturing process where we build the relationship and then we call them to action. Okay. And so that is the close. And now we don't have a word for this in the church other than salvation. And that doesn't really help us. In sales, you call it a close. There's a very interesting close correlation between those two things. We close the sale. Well, people are like, well, we don't do sales in the church. I don't know. I think Jesus looks an awful lot like the world's best salesperson ever. Why? Well, it's not about the money. It's free. It's given in grace and like all this stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, it is. And it's also kind of not, because what do I do as a believer? Does Jesus say, well, just accept me and then go back to whatever you were doing and you're fine? It's not really what the Bible says. It's like you're saved by grace. And also out of gratitude, you then start going through the process of sanctification. What do? You die to the flesh. You die to sin. You die to the vices that once controlled you, and you're free in righteousness. So he dies for me so I can freely have righteousness, and then I die to myself for the rest of my life. Well, that's not exact. It's free on the front end, and then there's work to be done on the back end. So, okay. So I'm going to die for the rest of my earthly life so that I can live eternally in heaven. That's a sale I'm worth, that's a purchase I'm worth making, or that I feel is worth making. Now, it's not everybody, but there is a risk reward calculation. So it's not to say that salvation is a sale. There are some pretty marked similarities there when we kind of look at things maybe more theologically. When someone comes into your church, it's also very similar to a sale. And pastors will say, well, it's not about the money because, you just tithe your 10%. That's sort of commanded by the Lord, or you give your offering above 10%, and that's your sacrifice to the Lord. Well, yes, that may well be the case. Problem is, if I'm going to sacrifice to the Lord, here, I'm going to go to the place where I'm able to grow and have the needs met for me and my family. That's my responsibility. I'm going to go to the place that can do that. And as an example of this, my wife and I usually go to a church here in town. Most of our community goes to a different church in Honolulu, and we don't like driving that far. That is sort of not helping our needs. I don't really care to drive 35 minutes to church every week if I can drive 5. So we go to the 5-minute church, and they have a great kids program, and that's the primary benefit for us. We want the kids to be getting constant exposure to biblical content every week, and we do our own stuff at home too, but we want them to be consistent in that and know that, church and ministry is an important part of life. Well, the other church that most of our community goes to put on a class for children that are basically sensitive and have maybe had exposure to trauma, and we have foster kids. Well, now the risk reward calculation has changed. I don't want to drive 35 minutes, but also this church on the hill that's got a pretty decent kids program, that's not nearly meeting the need that this other church is meeting for the next 8 weeks. And not only do I want those skills, but also we're trying to adopt some kids, and that is going to help us, with the social workers in the courts, and like all that's a huge need. So for our personal skills, because we want to be better parents, and also for other external factors. So we can say all day long in ministry that, it's their duty to the Lord to tithe, and they need to take it up with God if they're not tithing. Sure. And also, your church doesn't meet my needs, so I'm going somewhere else. Like, we can say that all day long, but if you do not meet the needs, you do not have money, and then your church does not exist. That is just the nature of reality. So that's the next thing. So we say closes. We're getting into semantics there a little bit, but I think it's important to be able to see it both ways. It's not about the money, and also you need to meet needs, because if you don't, you're not going to have any money, and then you don't have a ministry. So, in regard to close, we meet needs, we continue to meet needs, we build the relationship, and then you can ask for the desired action, and that is this. In marketing services, it's, hey, Pastor Karen, if this training sounds great to you, sign up right now for this much, and you're going to get training like this, and then you either do or you don't, and obviously you did. And so here we go. And what is that? That's the result, or that's the fruit that we're looking for. Now, in regard to ministries, it's, hey, this is your church home. We meet your needs. We're here for you. We're doing life together. So come on back next week, and hint, hint, continue to tithe, even though that's not the main point. That's baked into the cake. Well, that's great. If the church is meeting my needs, I'm going to go tithe at that church. We actually paid this church. I think we paid to go to this class, because that's a valuable class and it's given from a biblical perspective. Yeah, I'll pay to be there. Okay, so where does the support go for the church? The close, if we're talking about financially, it goes to the church that meets the needs. Okay, so that's the close. And we talk about closes like sales. Ministry leaders need to be able to understand how sales works, because when we're talking about getting people into church and doing a follow-up process and having a reason for them to come, that's a sales process. And so while it's not about the money, we do have to be sensitive to that. Okay, so this is the process. And what we want is we want to be able to measure this process going in and through our church. And the goal is to have water coming out the other end. Now, What happens with ministry leaders, and I'm still kind of setting up the purpose for this training. What happens with ministry leaders is that they don't exactly know what the problem is. And this is what I was looking for. They don't exactly know what the problem is. And so, for example, when they come to me and they say, hey, our website's not working, we need a new one. And I say, well, what do we need a new one for? Well, we don't know. It's not working. I know I've told you this before, and we're going to build on this. Um, well, we don't know. It's just not working. Well, what is it supposed to do? Well, we don't know. Okay, so we don't know what it's supposed to do, and it's not working. Which part of it's not working? They can't know that either because they don't even know what the outflow of that system is supposed to be. So we got to start and define. It sounds like you're a local ministry and you want people coming into your um your church. And they say, yes, that's it. Okay, so now we know what that system, what that digital system is supposed to output. The water coming out the other end is people into the church. Okay, so then we can go back and we can start looking and seeing what happens. Okay, well, do we have any people in the relationship building and close call to action process? Okay, which is down here. Do we even have anybody down in this part of the funnel? And if the answer is no, then okay, the problem's not here. Oh, okay, hold on. So you don't need me to build out this part of your process because, well, we don't even know if that works. There's nobody there. They didn't make it that far. The water's not flowing into this part of the pipe. Okay, well, what about conversions? Okay, so for example, if I talked to the church that did the carnival and they said, yeah, oh man, we don't know what's happening. You know, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people out to this carnival, and it's a huge hit, and the community loves it. And then basically, very few people show up for the first week after that, and then nobody shows up after that. We don't know what's going on. The whole thing's broken. We got to scratch it and start over. Okay, well, hold on a minute. We don't have to scratch it and start over. How many conversions do you have from the event itself? And what would they say? Well, what's a conversion? How many people did you get a name and an email from? And probably a phone number to come to your free carnival? None. Okay, so you had 1,000 people show up to this thing. We'll call it 500 families at this carnival that you spent $50,000 on, and you didn't even get contact information so we could do what? Build the relationship. Say, hey, you loved that carnival. If you think that's awesome, every week is a carnival at church. I really don't like saying that, but we've got amazing kids program. We've got family, whatever, all the things. Oh, yeah. Oh, that sounds great. We'll definitely come to your church. Well, what do you have to do? You've got to call them. You got to check in. You have to have a system in place to call them to the desired action, which is come to church. Well, we don't even get conversions. We didn't even know that was a thing. We just thought that would be rude because we should give it away for free. It is free, and to get name, email, and phone number. Now we can target in on the problem. We weren't even asking for conversions. So the first thing is we go backwards because most people start here and they say, well, are you even showing up out there? Trust me, churches are showing up out there. They're just showing up in the wrong places, but this isn't really where we need to start. Do you even know what the end goal is? And this is like we start with the vision. Do we know where's the promised land? Okay, well, assuming we know where the promised land, what is the goal then of the website or of the system you're looking at? Okay, we got to have this. Then do we even have anybody that's considering taking that specific action, showing up at church? Is there anybody in the close process? No. Do you have anybody converting? I don't even know what that is. Okay. Do you even have anybody showing up at the carnival that you would like them to convert at? Oh, yeah, we've got tons of people there. We have like hundreds. Okay, cool. So clearly the message is getting out and you're getting visitors to the event. And then where is the kink in the chain? There are no conversions. Aha. So the whole system isn't broken. You've just got a problem in a particular spot. And now we can what? Optimize. And we just open the flow to the one part because we didn't know that was a part that didn't have water going. There's a kink in that pipe. So then what? What do? We target in on the area that's not working. So the first step is to get all 4 of these in place. Are you showing up out there? This is a huge problem for ministries because why? Because ministries think we wait in here and people come to us. Why am I not getting more visitors on Sunday morning? Because there's 800 churches in a 4-block radius And the likelihood that any of the 10 people looking for a church on a Sunday morning comes to your church is basically zero. So you have to go out and find people and meet needs that are not looking for a church. And then they decide they are looking for a church because of the difference you've made in their life. Then they come, are we getting visitors? Okay. And once we're getting visitors, and so we need to make sure each one of these, there is a system in place to make this happen. Well, how do we get a conversion on the website? You meet a need and you ask for contact information. You know, is there a button on the website that says plan my visit? If there's not a button that says plan my visit, they can't plan a visit. You can't send them reminder texts and a reminder video, and sermon notes and join our Bibles. You can't follow up with them. So we need to have all of these in place. So that's step one with analytic data is you have to have impressions, visitors, conversions, and then some way to measure closes. That's the hardest part, especially if they're coming in person. That's where things can get a little complicated, and that's where a lot of times professional marketers come in to figure out how to track that in a meaningful way. Either way, usually if you give a coupon code here of some way and then they come to church and they say, hey, yeah, I got this coupon code, they said I get something, and then you give them a gift basket and you take that coupon code, then you can track how many people converted on the website and then came, and you can measure the success of that campaign. So we have then actual numbers. Okay. So let's say with our carnival or with our advertising campaign, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter. How many people were impressed? Well, we had 10,000 people who just heard about it out there. And again, that's in the connect phase of the funnel. And then beyond that, we had 1,000 total clicks onto the websites. We have 1,000 people on the website or 1,000 people showing up at the front door to our church on Sunday. Whichever way you want to go, it's the same thing. Okay, so let's say we've got 1,000 here, 10,000 people heard about it and 1,000 showed up. So what percent here, and this is the next part to understand, and this is the most important part. This is super basic. If you don't have impressions, visitors, conversions, and closes, you don't have a system. Now we're talking about optimizing the system once it exists. So let's look here. When we have 10,000 total impressions, people seeing and hearing about us out there, wherever that is, because we go out to them, then 10% of them have signed up. So 10% of the impressions, the water in this block, flows through into the water in this block, and we get 1,000 total clicks. So that is a 10% click-through rate. And the way in which we can just understand this is if I click on this, and then there's 99 other people that don't click on this, this bbhawaii.com has a 1% click-through rate. 1% of the people who saw it and were impressed or not so impressed clicked on it, and one showed up out of 100. That's a 1% click-through rate. This is super important because what percent, when we're sowing seed in ministry, this is true with evangelism. What is the rate at which people are even willing to listen to you, to show up to the conversation? Well, that's interesting. If I can become a better communicator, maybe, 2% of people show up. Now I have double the fruit in my ministry just because I learned how to communicate a little bit better. God still provides the growth. I don't know what 2 out of 100 are going to grow, but my average is 2 out of 100. Great. So I'm going to try to build my skills to increase the fruit production capacity of the ministry or of my evangelistic communication, something to that effect. So right now we've got 10% click-through rate, which is very high. An average rate here and here is about 3. So that is what we're looking at. When we talk about success, you should fail about 97% of the time if you're doing good. That is just how marketing and farming works. That's what we're looking at. Hopefully you got more than 3 out of 100 seeds, but that's a different area. Anyway, so then we have 1,000 total visitors, and let's go down here and we have 100 total conversions. Okay, so we got 1,000 visitors and 100 conversions. So our conversion rate now from visitors to signups, name, email, phone number, is 10%. Okay, that's still pretty good. I actually don't know what these numbers are. So This actually looks really good. So we got 100 total conversions. And what is that? People who said, save my seat. Oh my gosh, you got 100 last month? Yeah, we did. All right, how many people actually showed up to the church? You closed the deal, you actually got them there. 30. That's actually really good. So we're gonna have to break some of these numbers. But 30, okay, we got a 30%. That's super high. You're crushing it. This is like the best church marketing funnel I've ever seen. All right. But let's say actually your conversion rate, this is more applicable to like what I've seen with other ministries. Instead of being and really good, I would say would be 10% amazing when you're talking about website conversions. But we've got a Christian school we work with, and they get about 5,000 website hits a month, and they get like a 0.04%, 0.04% conversion rate. So not even a 0.5%. Okay. So when they come to me, a new client, and I look at their numbers and I'm assessing their let's just say digital presence. All right, what's not working? Wow, they've got a 10% click through from the internet. People are really interested. Okay, 0.04%. I don't even know what that means. That's way low. And then we've got a close rate of 30%. So when someone actually does convert their sales processes, their come and book a tour, whatever they're doing to get the parent to sign up for school services, that's working really well, assuming the numbers there are large enough to indicate something. But if it's like, yeah, well, we only had one in the last 10 years, then that doesn't matter either. The numbers matter. But if we say, well, there's actually 30 closes, then yeah, 30%, that's really great. All right. But this here, let's say this is a 0.4. What's the problem? I can already tell you just by looking at the numbers that if I go to their website and this is where the conversions are supposed to come in, they're not going to have a clear conversion path. In all likelihood, in a scenario like this, they're going to have 0 buttons. And what people are supposed to do is going to be hidden, so they can't actually do it. So it's like, contact us today, and then there's no contact form, there's no contact button. Maybe there probably doesn't even say contact us today. They're just people have to hunt to find whatever it is they're supposed to do, and it's unclear. It's 3 or 4 pages back, and you're lucky if you find it. So we got to fix that. And now what happens? I charge the line and conversions fill up, and they think it's a miracle because why? Because this, to most ministry leaders, is just one big black box. And a black box just means a system that when people look at it, there's an input and there's an output, but whatever goes on in there is magic. It's a mystery. And well, when we study the system and we study systems like we're doing, we can open up the black box and we can take it apart and we can go, oh, I understand how that works. And we can just tweak it. Like a friend of mine runs an AC company and he just goes and tightens a screw and they're like, what happened? You just were out there for 5 minutes and now my AC works. That's crazy town. I don't know what he's doing, but he does. Well, same thing. We open up the hood, we look underneath, we fix the one little part, the component that needs working, and we charge the line. And now you get to save ministry resources just because we kind of learned how these things work, and we don't have to scratch a whole website and spend $5,000 to build a new one. That is not, good stewardship if you can fix something smaller. And this is why I get so excited, Pastor Karen, to share this with ministry leaders, because I don't like building new websites if we don't have to build them. I'd rather save the ministry some money and either teach them how to do this or just go in and diagnose the issue and say, no, you just need to update this and we can do it for this much as opposed to $4,000, $5,000 for a website. That's super awesome. Then they can focus their money on ministry and actually get results. So then what do we do? If they don't have any calls to action, well, what's happening in their churchgoer journey, if you remember that mental model, right? We're taking here, I'll just pull it up so we can see. And these begin to overlay on each other because this is all sort of the same mindset, the same way of thinking with, let me see here, churchgoer journey. There we go. Here's our ministry strategy and churchgoer journey. Well, what if action step 2 here, going to the vision, we're taking our congregants to the vision, the land flowing with milk and honey. You're going to be a missionary. You're not going to be homeless. You're victorious, like whatever it is. And over here, it's impression, show up out there somewhere, invite them in. They show up on the website. We got that. And then what happens? Sign up for addiction counseling or sign up for missions training. You don't have this on your website. Of course, no one's showing up at the vision because they're just in the middle of the wilderness, and then there are no more road signs saying what to do next. And then they're like, well, this is the end of the road, I guess. And this is a huge reason why ministries don't grow. So we want to target and find the area that either does not have measurement. So first thing we have to do is measure the impressions, the visitors, the conversions, and the closes. And once we actually have data, so for many ministries that don't have it or new advertising accounts, we have to buy that information. So I say, well, I got to do data buying. What's that mean? I have to spend your church's money for 90 days, give or take how much you want to spend. But usually it's roughly 90 days. And then we buy the information. We set up the best guest system we can do based off of experience and the church's vision and all this stuff. And we set it up and then we buy the information so we actually have numbers to assess. Because I can't fix something I can't see, and the numbers are where the site is. That's the light in the system. So where is the water? Where's the kink in the hose? I've got to have water flowing through that hose, and the number shows me that. So we buy the information, and then we start assessing firstly. So we have all four of these now. Now, what are the rates? What is our click-through rate? What is our conversion rate? What is our close rate? And I just look and I start with closes and go backwards. Most marketers start with impressions and move forwards. And that's normal thinking. And that's also less effective because if the problem's over here, this is the most valuable part of the funnel. I am going to put a bunch of resources to get all the way here to figure out what the problem is. And I might have little problems back here and this whole thing's kinked. I just want to get the result. So if I don't need to fix any of these and I can just fix something here, I'm going to start there. So we're going to move backwards up the chain, and I'm going to look at the rates, make sure we're actually measuring something and have enough numbers. But assuming I do, 30% close rate, okay, that's pretty good. If you can get 1 in 3 people that you talk to about your church into your church, you're like a rock star. That's awesome. Okay, how many people are signing up that heard about us? 0.04. That's tiny. That's like less than 0.5%. Okay, that is clearly the area we function in. So there is a kink in this hose right here. And then we're going to go, what's the medium we're doing this on? Well, it's the website. Okay. You're going to go to the website. You're going to see there's no buttons. You need to make that the brightest thing on the page. Make it very clear. I want save my seat, book my, whatever it is. Make them click it. Give them a calendar. Make it super, super easy. Whatever it is that makes sense. You're not going to do a calendar. If it's saving a seat at church, it's a super short form. Obviously there's a certain way to do that. And then you let that kink come out, and then we start seeing if anybody shows up. Well, if you open up this kink, but it turns out you have a 0% click-through rate, and you've got 10,000 impressions, but 0 people flow into the website. Well, okay, so you have a conversion issue. So we solve that. And then we have a click-through rate issue. We got to go back and we have to solve that too. So sometimes there are multiple issues that compound, and you've just got to sort of work out the knots one at a time. And sooner or later, you'll have a fully functioning system, and you don't have to rebuild the whole thing from scratch. And that's the big point here is when you can target the data and figure out where the kink is, you don't have to buy a new hose. You can just twist it and get the kink out. And I see ministry leaders do that all the time, and like just save the money and put it to something that actually helps people and just fix the small issue that is at play. So this is how we use analytic data. And you'll notice here, there's not a lot of numbers compared to looking at the back end of Google Analytics or your church database, or like they give so many analytics. You can fall into that forever and get totally, I did that for a couple years when I was learning analytics. You just fall in there and there's so many numbers to look at. It doesn't matter. The only numbers that matter are the numbers that indicate whether or not you're getting closer or further away from the result you want. Okay. And so that's called a KPI, or a key performance indicator. So how many people showed up new last week or each week or a month? That is a key performance indicator. Where did they come from? That could be another key performance indicator. And then the basic indicators here: conversion rate, click-through rate, close rate, for each system that generates those new potential churchgoers. We would call them leads in marketing. And so if you have a digital system, I want to know the click-through rate, I want to know the conversion rate, and I want to know the actual rate at which people show up to the church from that system. If we have a surfing ministry, I don't know if that's a good idea until I can measure these numbers for the surfing ministry, and then I'll know if I am stewarding the resources to that ministry well. And then when I can line these numbers up for every program and every ministry and see if it's accomplishing the goal or step that it's on effectively, I can know if it should stay or not. And when everything is effective, I can say which one's the most effective. And the goal is to streamline less and less and less and less stuff until it is ultimately effective. So you want only as many programs as you need to reach your highest level of efficiency. And so that's kind of how it works. It starts streamlining down, and you end up with people like Craig Groeschel at whichever church he's at. I read the book It, and he's like, we have 25 campuses. Most of them are mega churches, and we only have 4 programs. We don't have a men's group. We don't have a women's group. We don't have Bible studies. We have 4 programs. I don't even know what they were. He goes, we test tons of programs, and you have 90 days. If you don't get fruit in the program in 90 days, we cut it and we move on. That is exactly how a business person or a marketer would run it. And that also happens to produce fruit in ministry. And a lot of ministry leaders, Karen, to that would say, well, yeah, but the church isn't a business. That's not the point. The point is God made an orderly world. And whether you're doing a service in a ministry or a service in a business, people gravitate to services and have their needs being met in the same sort of ways. That's why we see the same sort of patterns. So church is a business, church isn't a business. It doesn't really matter. The point is it works in a particular way, and you can either swim downstream or you can swim upstream. So any thoughts or questions to flesh out the analytic data here more?
No, I think I'm getting a picture of it. Like I think within our context, what we're seeing is that people are online, they're seeing our videos or our worship services. They then will go to the website, and then I think the conversion is them signing up for our electronic newsletter that goes out weekly.
Okay.
And so we do get at least an email out of that. Some have started to then volunteer or showing up at church. I just don't know what the rates are. So it'll be interesting to figure that out. But I think it's around the building relationships, which is where one of the big kinks is, I think.
Great.
In our section. But I also think too that we could probably optimize a bit more like we have lots of impressions, and how do we get the clicks? I think we're missing a bit of a pathway there.
That's awesome. And if I can, so two things to note on what you said. Firstly, how do you get the rate? You take the total number of people here, and you take the total number of people who show up at this step, whichever the step is, and you divide it by the people on the last step for a percentage. So basic math there. I'm not a math person, but that's how you get a rate. It's how you get a percentage. Beyond that, you said that you're having them sign up for your newsletter. Okay. I would encourage you to consider other options other than a newsletter. Unless, and this could be an exception, older, maybe 50 and up congregations might gravitate to a newsletter because that's something they're more comfortable with, which may be the case in your case. However, if you're looking to attract younger audiences, nobody's going to go for a newsletter, because we all remember the sign up for our newsletter and then we got spammed to death, and we all have that email account that we're all scared to open. Nobody wants to sign up for a newsletter because they know it's just going to be people asking them for stuff. And so, not that your newsletter is spam, but people equate newsletters with spam now, who are not, like I said, maybe a little older. But to that point, how can you get them to join a newsletter in a way that they do not perceive as spam? A download of some sort, some piece of content, some training, some guide, some kind of Yeah, something to that effect. And that's going to depend on your congregation. So if your congregation loves newsletters, awesome. I would say, what would they love in addition to the newsletter that young people can also get on board with? And that will help to broaden out the age range of people signing up. Uh, because most marketers have moved away from newsletters, most serious marketers. And so that is something that will sort of continue to wane with time. And if we can find something that the more mature congregation loves in addition to a newsletter, and then the younger audience loves too, then you've got something that can work for a little bit of a broader range of people. Okay.
Mhm.
So that might be something, because also, how does the newsletter alone fit in with the vision? It's a little bit, how do I say this? The analogies. It's kind of canned. It's sort of canned ham. If I'm having it's just kind of, it's okay, I guess. I don't know. Like, I'm having Thanksgiving dinner for my family. Well, we just got a bunch of canned stuff because it's quick and it's easy and it makes sense. Well, I mean, I don't know. This is kind of a special occasion. Maybe we should get a turkey and put it in the oven. That might fit a little bit better, might feel a little more natural. So it's like, join a newsletter. That's what's everywhere. And maybe there's something that's just a little bit more tweaked and tailored for your specific ministry that people could really get on board with, that you could add in with that. And they sign up for this and then they just get your newsletter. And if they want to unsubscribe, they can. Something to that effect.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point because we're definitely in an area where we are seeing more of the young adults, like that sort of 18 to 40 range. So yeah, that's a good question to try
Right.
and figure out.
Yeah. And then the question then, and all of this stems from, who's your audience? And once you really know the biggest problems that they're facing in their life, you know what to give them. Ministry leaders are interested in growth and burnout, and um, you know, they're not interested in marketing. I can tell you that. So if I use marketing language, they're not interested, because that is like the thing they have to do and put up with because they want to help people, and that's how you get to them, but really they just want to help people. But then, there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of stress. Well, how do we deal with that? So that's why I talk about that so much, because that's the need of the audience. And so so the same thing, how do I say this? There is no one size fits all strategy for ministries. So a lot of times we'll see ministry leaders going online and just doing that exact thing that, like, Chris Abbott says. And I love his content, super good content. And also, on the back end, he's not just doing the canned thing for every single ministry. He's customizing, because every ministry is a little different. If it's being done well, which I assume it is, he's customizing because every ministry is a little bit different. And so the underlying principles work the same, but the way in which that comes out for each ministry in an effective way is different. So for your ministry, do you need to have an action step 3? Yes, every ministry probably has an action step 3, unless it's like super to the point. But what is it for you? It depends on who your audience is and what their need is. It's a dynamic system. Yeah. And that's also like same idea with social media. Oh man, social media. If we're big on social media, then our church is gonna, I don't know, be the best church. How do you even know your church needs social media? Well, we need it because other churches do it. Well, hold on. Isn't your average like congregant member 65 or over? Yeah. Do they use computers? Well, no. Oh, I never really thought about that. Cool. So you're putting like $2,000 a month worth of resources into social media, and your congregation doesn't care. So what are you doing? That's strategic thinking as opposed to following trends. So that's kind of where you want to be. Um, I am open for thoughts or questions or anything else you want me to touch on, or you want to touch on, before we get to the end of the call.
I'm So I don't know if you have ideas. I'm sensing that a lot of people are very isolated in our area. And so I think they're looking for friendship. Like, would one of those suggestions just be a button that says, are you seeking friends? Like, can you
Right.
be that basic? Or is there a better
Interesting.
way of
Yeah, I
phrasing
don't.
something like that?
Awesome question. And that gets well, and so you're pointing broadly to a need that's not met. People are isolated. Okay, so we want to get them together. The next question is, how would they like to be gotten together? That was a weird way to say that. Uh, you know, for example, inner city single moms, you can't just say, "Hey, do you want some friends?" They'd be like, "Huh, yeah, that'd be nice," and then they'll quit listening to you. Okay, well, how about we have childcare and we have a massage therapist coming, like we've talked about this, and you craft something that gets them together in a way that specifically meets their needs. They're super stressed. So something to reduce stress would be meaningful. Well, what if you have a bunch of entrepreneurial 33-year-olds in your church? Well, what would we love? How about we, because that's obviously me. Uh, I would love a group of like-minded other entrepreneurs who also have a biblical viewpoint on life, and we can get together and have a ministry leader who's competent in those areas talk about biblical entrepreneurship. I'd love to listen to that. Never heard about that in my whole life. But if you told me there's a bunch of people like me who want to talk about things I love and we're going to talk about it in a biblical context, I'll drive as far as you want. you know? Uh, and that's like, Michael, what do we do here? This is what we do here. We have a community of people who do exactly that because there are very few people in anybody's, everybody just kind of has the employee sort of normal way of doing things, which is fine. And it's very difficult to find entrepreneurial sort of people around you. So we do it digitally and we form a relationship and support each other and hold each other accountable and these types of things, and we do it online. All right, so if you could do that in a church, I'd show up if that's who your audience is. So what is the need? If their need is connection, how do they want to connect? Maybe they're all dog lovers and you need to have a dog park in the field next to your church. Well, now you're going to have a dog lover congregation and they're just going to be chilling at church every day.
Yep. Yeah, that's actually come up a few times. Whether we have a doggy daycare, like come have your pets so they can have a play date
Yeah.
and then connect people up.
Oh, that's so interesting. I was just randomly bringing that up. But yeah, I mean, and the question is, and what you want to do is you want to dig until you hit bedrock. And the bedrock is the deepest need. And, you know, Jesus is Jesus. And when you look at the New Testament, what does he do? He's just like, oh, your deepest needs, you're blind. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's definitely it. All right, here, let me fix that. Your deepest need is fish. Like the stories in scripture seem to make that process seem easy. That's a very difficult process when you're talking about large groups of people. And so talking to a lot of people and saying, what's going on in your life and how is this? And even tracking that and writing down what the biggest problems are they're facing afterwards. And then looking at that data set and saying, all right, looks like 80% of them have this need. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that is a really big need. Let's focus in there. And if that's doggy daycare, go after doggy daycare. If it's, we're all Star Trek fans and we all speak whatever alien language, but nobody ever does that. Well, great. We're going to get together and we're going to talk about the Bible in the alien language, and you bring someone in who's a Christian that can do that. And now, I mean, you talk about people who are excited. You have a Star Trek fan base Christian community that's spreading the gospel online in alien languages. Like that's a legitimate idea if that's your audience.
Yeah.
So you enjoying that, Michael? I say that because I had a psychology teacher who grew up in a town, and the town was a huge Star Trek town. And he said that the men in the town, he said that at the hospital, the nurses were required to speak whatever the language is in Star Trek. That was a requirement for the job because there were consistently men who would drink on holidays and the weekends. They'd get in some sort of an accident or get hurt, and they would default to Star Trek language and they would not communicate in English at the hospital. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I'm pulling from. So, how do you hire at a hospital? Well, you have to hire people who can meet the needs of your audience. And if they only speak Star Trek language when they're drunk, then that's who you have to hire. So, same thing with you. You find the deepest felt need. All right, as long as it's in line with the vision and this is the audience God's called us to, we're going to do that. It doesn't matter so long as you're taking them to the vision and it's biblical.
Yeah. Yeah, there is actually a Klingon Bible or version
There you
of the
go.
Bible in Klingon. So
Is there really? Oh my gosh, I
yeah.
didn't even know. I've got to know. That's hilarious. Klingon. I never followed, but that's so
Yeah.
fun. Cool. Well, this
Awesome.
is great. Thank you for being here, and we will continue breaking this into marketing specifically next week. So this week was how to understand analytic data, and we kind of spread that across in-person programs or online. It's all the same
Mhm.
thing. It all works the same way. And we can start looking at how do we apply this to web design? How do we apply this to advertising? How do we apply it to search engine optimization, web page design, email follow-up. So when we're looking at the marketing funnel, which apparently I got rid of, we can start breaking into each of these sections and saying, how do the numbers make sense here? And which numbers do we measure in which area? And then how do we optimize? And the goal is not to just put a system in place and then it's amazing. It's to put a system in place that maybe kind of breaks even. It's just sustainable. That is great. If you can start with a system that's not losing, that's a great place to start. And then you just tweak. And that's what a marketer or a business entrepreneur would call optimization. And if we can just go from a 0.5% of people, let's say tithing, and we go to 1%, you just doubled your tithe base. We don't need to have some crazy increase. We just need a 0.5%, and we just want to tweak it. And that's what we do with marketing is how do we just make it a little bit more effective in one area, and then the output doubles. That's how these systems work. So we will get more into that, and we'll pick a system, and we'll start going with that next week. Okay.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Pastor Karen, you have a wonderful week.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
God bless.
Bye.
All right, Michael, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
Awesome. Give me 2 seconds. I've got to use the restroom and I'll be right back.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Hello, hello.
Ah,
Juke, we got Juke in here.
Yo, yo.
Awesome. Juke, I'm sorry I haven't been in touch, but
hey, Duke.
I did plan a lesson today in to go over. If you want to interject and you want to jump on and fill in gaps, you are welcome to hop in with me.
I'm sorry, bro. I was just checking on. Say that one more time for me. You planned a lesson and
I did.
if I
Yep.
say anything.
Yeah, feel free to hop in anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, just riffing and having fun. But in future weeks, we've kind of wrapped up and done a lot with atheism. We did hit the moral argument, and we went through micro macro evolution. We kind of did all the major points. And if there's anything, I really like that new shirt. Um, if there's anything you want to hit on in a future week, we can wrap it back around and add more there. Totally fine with that. But would love to, yeah, if you've got anything this week, you're welcome to just pile in on whatever I'm talking about. Cool.
Cool.
Okay.
Hi, Zach. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Duke.
All right. I do have 2 slices of bacon. Oh, it's maple bacon. Zach, did you have maple bacon?
I was
Did
gonna ask
Somi
what
just
kind of
give you those?
bacon was it?
What?
I was gonna
Did
ask what
Somi?
kind of. Sorry, Zach. I'm cutting you off again.
Yeah, Somi just gave me these, Zach.
Yeah, that's the maple bacon Nina just made.
I know. That's why I was asking if you had some.
I did. I just had like 10 pieces.
It's really good. I don't know if I've ever had maple bacon. Okay.
I found that recipe.
Wow. That's delicious. There's got to be a lot of sugar in that.
Elizabeth wanted me to say hello, so hello from Elizabeth and Judah.
Hi, Elizabeth. Okay, this is a copy. Okay, cool. Okay. So what I planned for today is, oh no, it's an actual TV. Darn. What I planned for today is how I see the process of salvation when it comes to apologetics. And so, let me see here. Elements. We're going to get a square here, I guess. Give me a second. I'm not sure. Am I sharing my screen yet?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Let me see here. Nope. Where is it? Oh, give me 1 second. I just need a black square. Where's my black square? And I can get moving here.
Hey, Brett.
Yes.
While you're doing that, I just wanted to say that that video that I released.
Yeah. How's that doing?
Well, it's got 960 views and it's got all kind of questions from atheists. So I don't know, like atheists
Oh,
telling
of
me that I'm stupid and this kind of stuff.
course.
So anyways, if any of that seems relevant, again, relating to DNA, you let me know and I will let you know what their comments were or questions were.
Wait, what do you mean?
Okay, so well, let me just say a few of them. So one of the comments was, if complex things demand a creator and God is complex, then who created God? Okay,
I'd say God is simple.
this was one of their gotcha questions. And then
That's a
and
silly
then
question. God
and
is spirit. That's simple. That is a lack of stuff.
yeah, so then their assertion is intelligent design fails logic.
Sure. I would disagree with that. I would say God is simple, not complex. There. All right, here we go. Oh, hey, right on. That's exactly what I am looking for. I already made it. I was just looking for the box. Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm going to start filming. Actually, I'm going to eat this piece of bacon. I'm going to start filming. Juke, you see where we're going with this?
Yeah.
All right. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to pound this.
Do it.
Oh my
Do
gosh,
it.
I'm already recording.